Hey guys, it's Christy with Christy's Custom Creations, and in spirit of 4th of July coming up, I figured that I would show everyone how I made this absolutely beautiful patriotic red, white, and blue tumbler. So to get started, I started out with a 20-ounce skinny tumbler. It's got a very slight taper to it, and I bought this tumbler here at Stainless Steel Depot, and I have prepped it by sanding it, and then I spray painted it with a matte white spray paint. Now I let this spray paint dry for a couple of days just because I had a lot going on, but also I didn't want my painter's tape to pull my spray paint up, so I made sure that it was 100% completely dry. So I've got some 3/4 inch painter's tape here, and I took one long strip of painter's tape and I laid it down on the tumbler and just kind of let it swirl its way around the tumbler. And then after that, I took some smaller pieces of painter's tape, maybe about an inch, inch and a half long, and I just laid it down along that first piece of tape so that I could use it as a guide for my second piece of tape, so that I could make sure that my lines were pretty evenly spaced out. And then once I did that, I just pulled the short pieces of tape off, and then there you have it. I have a straight line that stays, I say straight, it's a line that stays perfect along with the other lines. So, and then I take those same little short pieces of tape and I just do the very same thing to the next line. I just line them up down there, take my next piece of painter's tape and lay it down and swirl it down around the cup. And when I started off with this cup, I wasn't 100% sure how I was going to do it. So this was a little bit of a process for me to kind of work through in my head, but it ended up working out perfectly. As you can tell by the picture is stunning. So, and I just laid it down. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect, but you do want it to be, pretty straight. You don't want any big lumps or bumps in your tape if you can prevent it. And I don't know if you noticed this little cradle that I have down here that I've got my tumbler setting on. It is by Beautiful Creations, and she actually has an Etsy shop. I will link it down in the description box below. Ashley with Beautiful Creations makes some really cool 3D printed stuff, and this tumbler cradle that I'm using down there is absolutely perfect for what I am doing here, because I'm able to lay my cup down, put down vinyl, put down tape, and it keeps it up off of any surface, because as you can see, I get glitter everywhere when I work, so it keeps my tumbler glitter free and keeps it on a nice solid surface while I work. So I've got a few lines that I've wrapped all the way around this cup. So now I want to make my blue area, so for my flag. So I'm going to just lay a piece all the way down and kind of just cut it off so that we make almost a triangle. Yeah, I guess we make a triangle. And I didn't like it initially. My last piece of tape, I had too big of a gap, so I just pulled it up and I repositioned that last piece of tape and it ended up working out great. So then I took my straight line down here and I just eyeballed it. You don't have to be perfect with it. I took my straight line and I laid it down to create my border. So now I'm going to take a craft knife and I'm just going to very carefully trim the tape right here along the edge so that it creates a nice straight line for where we're going to lay our blue glitter. So I cut out some stars. These stars are 1 inch tall, and I use permanent vinyl for everything. So I use Oracle for everything, permanent vinyl, and I wanted to make it a little bit less sticky so that it was easier to get off of my tumbler. So as you saw, I just laid it down on my apron that I was wearing a couple of good times just to make sure that it wasn't too sticky so that it wasn't too hard to get off later. So I laid them down, and as you can see, the stars overlap a little bit onto the painter's tape and then down some. So the part that overlaps down in the bottom, I'm not worried about that. I'm gonna cut that off and then it will overlap on the painter's tape, and you'll see the benefit to that and how it kind of fades down into the color below it. You'll see that further on in the video. So I'm just gonna lay all these down really, like mash them down really good and smooth them out so that they stick. Now, because I had laid them on my apron prior to putting them on the cup, they aren't super sticky. So you wanna be very careful pulling them off. You just need them to stick on there just enough to keep the Mod Podge and the glitter out of those areas. So just pull it off really carefully, pull the transfer tape off really carefully so that you have your stars left behind. So now I'm going to take that one of those little stars that I had left over, and I'm just going to place it down below to fill in that little void that we have down there. And this design here is just a basic star that I found on Google. I Googled star and I found a shape and I traced it with my silhouette program, and there you have it. And I made them about 1 inch tall, and that was that. So I'm going to start off with some Mod Podge. We're going to glitter the blue section of this cup first. Whenever I'm glittering a cup, I like to start with the darkest colors first, because I feel like if I put the lighter colors on, the darker colors are going to end up being in the lighter colors. So I've just got a blue acrylic paint here that I have squirted down into some Mod Podge. And I had some really cool tips in one of my previous videos about somebody that was like, hey, just put some paint into your Mod Podge and you don't have to do as many layers of glitter. And I was like, holy smokes, that's a great idea. So I've got the base of this cup painted white, but I've put blue paint into my Mod Podge. So I mean, it's kind of blue. So I'm going to use my glitter line, KCC Glitter, the color Ravenclaw for this cup. And that is the perfect blue for this Patriotic tumbler. And like I said, it is called Ravenclaw, and it is by kccglitter.com. I will have the link for my website down in the description box below. So I'm going to take my brush here, my sponge brush, and I'm just going to dab all around these stars. I want to try to not get too much Mod Podge on the stars if possible, because it makes it really hard to find the stars in the future. So whenever it's time to pull the stars off, it makes it very difficult to find the stars if you cover them up with the Mod Podge and glitter. I've seen where people have taken a hot glue gun and put a dab of hot glue on any pieces they want to pull up. I find it's easier if I'm working with a little bit of a bigger image, I find it easier to just work around it the best that I can and not completely cover it up. So just a tip, you can you can do it different ways. It's just completely up to you how you want to do it. So I am just, like I said, going to get a nice coat of this blue Mod Podge on there, and then once I get that on there really good, I'm going to take my blue Ravenclaw glitter here, and I'm going to sprinkle it all over this area that we just painted with the blue Mod Podge. Just kind of tap off any excess glitter, and I'm going to let that completely dry. I let it dry for about 30 minutes or so before I did my next coat of Mod Podge over the blue glitter. So I just have a little paintbrush, and I'm dusting off it. Now that it's completely dry, I'm dusting off any excess glitter, because it makes it a little bit easier to put another coat of Mod Podge on if I don't have a bunch of loose glitter trying to hang out and get pushed around. So I'm going to go back in with the blue painted Mod Podge, and I'm just going to work my way around that whole area that we glittered about 30 minutes ago and just get really good coverage all around these stars. I honestly probably could have gotten away with one coat of glitter for pretty much most of these colors, but I wanted to make sure that I had super good coverage. I had good coverage as it was, but I'm kind of if I'm doing Mod Podge, I'm a 2 coats kind of girl. I really like to have 2 good coats of glitter on there if I am working with Mod Podge. It's just a personal preference. So I've got my second coat on there, and I'm just going to go back in with my Ravenclaw KCC glitter now. Now, while this second coat is still wet, I'm going to go ahead and pull the stars off. So I'm pulling this line on the side here, and I always pull it at an angle away from where the glitter and Mod Podge is if possible. I'm also pulling this line of tape here off because I want to make sure that it doesn't stick later. So I'm actually going to go back in and relay this line of tape that I am currently pulling off. And I know I'm kind of getting off camera a bit. I'm sorry. I was trying to be really careful with peeling this tape while also recording it. So also where I had the stars kind of overlap just a little bit, you can see where it pulled those as well, and look how pretty that is. So I'm going in with my little pick tool here. I bought these pick tools on Amazon. I love them. They're kind of like dentist pick tools. Like I said, I'm getting off camera. I'm sorry, y'all. I'll get back on camera in just a second, but I'm really careful not to scrape outside of where my vinyl is. I hook it, and I actually do kind of scratch the paint up underneath the star just a little bit, which isn't a big deal because I go in with paint in my Mod Podge now because I had some awesome suggestions from some of my subscribers. So, and I actually, if you see right here, my hand slipped and I did scrape that glitter. So I just went in and just dabbed it real easy with Mod Podge and just kind of patched it up a little bit. So I'm just hooking those stars with my hook tool, grabbing them and pulling them off. And like I said, you want to do this while that second coat of Mod Podge is still wet. I do it immediately just so that I don't pull any of the glitter around the edges that's not supposed to come up, just so that I don't pull that off. So there you go. So once that is completely dry, I'm gonna let that dry for probably 2 hours, and then I'm gonna go in. This is some Krylon clear spray paint. I usually use Rust-Oleum 2X clear, but I didn't have any. So I used some Krylon gloss clear, and I went in and I painted that, or I sprayed it with that so that my blue glitter did not move. I gave it a really thick coat, and then I went in with my painter's tape again and I taped that edge off for my stars there, because we want to do the stars and the stripes where the painter's tape is right now. We're going to do those last because it is our lightest color glitter. It's white. So now we're going to go ahead and do the red stripes, and I've just got some red acrylic paint. This is Apple Barrel red paint. I think it's called Apple Barrel. I bought it on Amazon. I'll link it down below. And I just put some of the red paint down into my Mod Podge. And this color that we are going to use here, which is also by KCC Glitter, it's called Baywatch. It is a stunning red. It is a great red for a Patriotic red, white, and blue cup. And I'm just going to go in and take my Mod Podge with my red Mod Podge, and I'm going to dab it on really good on just inside where the painter's tape is. And if you'll note, I take care to not get too much Mod Podge onto my painter's tape because it's less chance of pulling it off in the end. So just be careful. Try not to get too much of the Mod Podge on there. So I'm going to work my way around the cup, and I'm going to make my stripes all the way around, my red stripes. And just as I get it on there, as I get the Mod Podge on there, I'm going to glitter it. Now right here where the red and blue meet, you want to be really careful and try to keep your line as straight as possible there. And then I sprinkle my glitter on it. Tap off any excess glitter. I try to brush off any excess glitter areas as much as I can without damaging or without getting into any wet areas. I brush it off so that it's less to try to clean up later. But I am just going to go in here, dab it really good, and sprinkle my paint or my glitter on. Like I said, this is called Baywatch, and in case you missed it, I have started a glitter line. It's called kccglitter.com, and we have some really beautiful colors on there. These colors that are being featured in this video are my Patriotic red, white, and blue colors, so be sure to check it out. Like I said, kccglitter.com. We're using some really beautiful colors here. In this particular video, we're using Ravenclaw, Baywatch, Silver Bullet, and Mother of Pearl. So now that I've got my red glitter on there, I'm going to let this layer completely dry for about 30 minutes. And I don't know exactly what happened to me putting the second coat of red glitter on and me pulling the tape, but for some reason it is not here. So basically I put the second coat of red glitter on and then I sealed it in with a clear spray paint. And once I did that, it is time to go in with this white. So this white that I'm using is called Mother of Pearl, and I decided to switch up paintbrushes for this part because this part requires a little bit more of a fine line, and I like using a paintbrush when I need a fine line. I like using it better than I do a foam brush because I'm able to be a little bit more precise. So I'm just gonna go in, get a really good coat of Mod Podge on there, and then I am going to sprinkle that Mother of Pearl white glitter on there. And the Mother of Pearl glitter on this cup is absolutely beautiful. It's got some very light pearlescent shifts to it, but it is a very beautiful white, and it just went perfectly. It tied in perfectly with this cup here. So I am just going to work my way all the way around the cup, doing the exact same thing and sprinkling glitter on there and using the Mod Podge. And now the Mod Podge here, I did mix in some white apple barrel paint into this Mod Podge so that it was able to cover any little imperfections that I may have had on the white. For example, where the stars are, I had scraped the stars, just, you know, the paint on the stars a little bit whenever I was picking the stars off the cup. So that helped to cover those areas up just a little bit. So, and also I like to try to make sure that my Mod Podge is nice and smooth before I sprinkle my glitter on, because if it's not smooth and it's kind of lumpy and bumpy, then it can sometimes show on underneath the glitter. So I always try to make sure it is smoothed out as much as possible. And the really difficult part of this cup was the stars. That is the part that was the most time consuming for me. And you have to be super, super careful around those stars. And you'll see me here in just a little bit. I'm actually going to switch up paintbrushes for the stars because I needed one with a little bit more finer tip so that I could get down into the tips of those stars. But I won't lie, y'all. Those stars were a real pain in the butt. So right here, I went ahead and switched up paintbrushes. This paintbrush has a pointed tip to it, so it made it a lot easier to do the stars, but it still was a pain. And honestly, looking back, I probably would have done the stars before I did the stripes so that I would have been able to rest my hand where the stripes were, because having to keep my hand up off of the white glitter because it was still wet, it made it a lot more difficult. So from this point forward, I would always do the stars before I did the stripes on the cup, the white stripes on the cup. Now that I have this first layer of white glitter done, I let it completely dry for about 30 minutes, and then I went in with a clear spray to seal my glitter in. And whenever I go back in, I kind of hit the other colors as well, just to make sure that everything is good and in place. So now that that's completely dry, I'm going back in to do a second coat of glitter over my white here. And as you can see, I started off with the stars first this time, so it didn't matter if I touched the other part of the cup, and I didn't have to kind of super freehand it and hold my hand in the air. I was able to actually touch the rest of the cup while I did it. So it was much, much more helpful doing it that way. So there's no reason to talk you through this part. You've seen me do this over and over again. I'm just going to Mod Podge the entire white area of this cup, the stars first, and then the stripes after that. And then after that, I will let it dry. So I'm gonna let y'all just watch me work. And I do want to note that once everything was good and dry, I did brush off the excess glitter because I don't want my colors to cross over with each other. So that is one thing that you may want to look at doing in between each layer of glitter, is brush off the excess, because it makes the Mod Podge go on easier because you don't have excess glitter kind of trying to roll around underneath your brush. And it also keeps your glitter from really cross-contaminating. Notice how I'm being super careful along the lines here where the red starts with my brush, because I don't want to get any of that Mod Podge onto my red glitter, because if I do, then obviously my white glitter is going to stick to it and you aren't going to have those really nice crisp lines there. So be sure and take care whenever you are working around those lines. Okay, now that all the white is done and sealed in and dry and everything, I'm gonna go in and I'm going to do the bottom with Silver Bullet. And I've broken out the sponge brush again for this part, and I'm just going to make my way around the bottom. And I want to be careful not to try to get it on the sides of the cup at all. You want to stick just right there on the bottom of the cup. And I'm going to take this Silver Bullet glitter from KCC Glitter. It is a absolutely beautiful solid silver glitter. It's a metallic glitter and it is stunning. It is really, really pretty under epoxy as well. And I am just going to Mod Podge it on there. I'm going to sprinkle it on, and I am going to sprinkle around the sides just a little bit, but because my glitter has been sealed in and it's completely dry, it's not going to stick to the sides, and it will brush right off whenever everything is all dry. So just do that on there, and then once that dries, 30 minutes after I put it on, it's dry. So I'm going to go in with a second coat of Mod Podge just to make sure that I've got excellent coverage, because I did not color the Mod Podge for this coat here, so I definitely needed a second coat on this cup here. So just going in and making sure my Mod Podge is nice and smooth, because you don't want any crazy little bumps or anything like that showing up underneath your glitter. So make sure it's nice and smooth and covered really good, and then we are going to go in with a second coat of Silver Bullet. Once that second coat of Silver Bullet is completely dry, usually my last coat of Mod Podge, or my second coat of Mod Podge and glitter, I usually give it a good probably an hour or two, maybe even more, to let it dry before I go in with my clear spray and seal it in. So look how beautiful this cup is. It is absolutely stunning, and it is absolutely beautiful under epoxy. So now that everything is sealed in and dry, it's time to go in with epoxy. And for this cup, this is a 20-ounce cup, so I'm going in with 20 milliliters of Tumblerpoxy epoxy. So with the Tumblerpoxy epoxy, it is a super easy epoxy to work with. It is crystal clear and I love it. Look how this glitter just absolutely shines under the epoxy. And want to mention KCCGlitter.com does sell these 16-ounce kits of Tumblerpoxy epoxy. So if you've never tried it before and you want a small kit of epoxy to just try it out and give it a try, you can definitely find that on my website, along with all of the glitter that was used in this video. So be sure to check it out. So I get it on there, smooth it out, and then I take my blowtorch and I make a really, really quick pass over my entire tumbler using my blowtorch just to pop any micro bubbles and smooth it out. And I didn't want to drag this video out any longer, but I did put 3 total coats of epoxy on this cup. I put 2 initial coats and then I sanded my rim and my edges, and then I put a 3rd and final coat of epoxy on there, and it was good to go. So look how absolutely stunning this cup is. And that's just under 1 coat of epoxy, y'all. It is absolutely beautiful. It is perfect for the 4th of July, Independence Day. God bless America. I love our country. And I also love my KCC Diamond Patreon members. Thank you so much to each and every one of you for your support. I love y'all. Y'all are awesome. Y'all rock, and I couldn't do this without y'all. And as always, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please hit the like and subscribe button for more videos like this and more tutorials. I hope you have a wonderful day, and y'all take care. Bye.